The light from my phone screen burned into my eyes like a laser. It was 3:14 a.m., and the notification from my banking app was staring back at me like a death warrant. Transaction declined, insufficient funds. I wasn't trying to buy a Rolex or a flight to Vegas. I was trying to pay for a $4 box of generic cereal at a 24-hour CVS because my stomach was growling so loud I couldn't sleep. I stood there, the cool air of the refrigerator aisle hitting my neck, feeling the cashier's eyes boring into me. I had 4 credit cards in my wallet, and as of 3 minutes ago, every single one of them was maxed out to the limit. This is what it feels like to drown while everyone around you thinks you're just swimming. My name is Mark, and I'm 32 years old. If you saw me on the subway in my crisp blue button-down, you'd think I was doing just fine. But my life was a house of cards, and tonight a light breeze had finally knocked the whole thing down. I walked back to my apartment in the dark, the city lights of Chicago blurring into streaks of yellow and white. My apartment was a studio, which is just a polite way of saying I slept, ate, and showered in a space the size of a walk-in closet. The rent had climbed another $200 this year, devouring my paycheck before I even saw it. I sat on the edge of my bed, listening to the muffled sounds of my neighbor's television through the paper-thin walls. I pulled out a yellow legal pad and a pen, the old-fashioned way. I needed to see the damage in black and white. The numbers were staggering. $22,000 in credit card debt. $600 a month in interest alone. A car note for a vehicle I barely drove because parking cost more than the gas. I felt a cold knot of panic tightening in my chest, making it hard to breathe. How did I get here? It wasn't one big mistake. It was 1,000 tiny ones. It was the treat-yourself lattes, the Uber rides when I was too tired to walk, and the subscription services I forgot to cancel. It was the pressure to look like I belonged in a city that was designed to bleed me dry. The next morning, the alarm clock was a physical blow to the head. I skipped breakfast, partly to save time, mostly because I literally had no food, and headed for the L train. The commute is where the stress really starts to simmer. You're packed in like sardines with hundreds of other people who all look just as miserable as you feel. I got to the office at 8:55 a.m. I work as a mid-level analyst for a logistics firm. My boss, a man named Miller who seems to thrive on other people's cortisol, was already standing by my desk. He didn't say morning. He just dropped a stack of folders that sounded like a gunshot when they hit the mahogany. I need these projections by EOD, Mark, and try to be more precise than last time. We can't afford close enough right now. I nodded, my throat dry. I wanted to tell him I couldn't afford close enough either. I spent the next 8 hours staring at spreadsheets until the cells began to swim. Every time the desk phone rang, I jumped, terrified it was a debt collector calling my place of work. Lunch was a packet of instant oatmeal I found in the back of the break room cupboard. I ate it with a plastic spoon, watching my coworkers head out to the trendy poke bowl shop downstairs. They were laughing, complaining about their weekend plans. I felt like I was living in a different dimension, a gray world where joy was an expense I couldn't authorize. By 6 p.m., I was exhausted, but the day wasn't over. I couldn't go home yet. For the last 3 weeks, I had been picking up shifts as a ghostwriter for a content mill and doing data entry on a freelance site. I headed to the public library, the only place in the city where you can sit for 4 hours without being expected to buy a $10 drink. I opened my laptop, my fingers cramping as I typed out articles about top 10 travel destinations and how to invest in crypto. The irony wasn't lost on me. Here I was, writing advice on wealth while I calculated if I had enough change in my cup holder to buy a gallon of milk. I worked until the librarian told me they were closing. My eyes were bloodshot and my back felt like it had been fused into a permanent C shape. When I finally got home, there was a fluorescent orange slip of paper tucked into my doorframe, a late notice from the utility company. I felt a surge of hot, prickly anger. I crumpled the paper and threw it across the room. I wanted to scream, but the neighbors would complain and I couldn't afford a noise violation. The turning point came on a Tuesday. I was walking past a high-end furniture store on my way to the train. In the window, there was a minimalist leather chair that cost $4,000. I saw a young couple inside smiling and pointing at it. I stopped and looked at my reflection in the glass. I looked haggard. I looked like a man who was losing a war. And then I looked at the couple again. I realized I had spent the last 5 years trying to buy a life that looked like theirs, instead of building a life that actually belonged to me. I went home and didn't open my laptop for work. Instead, I opened a spreadsheet I called the War Map. I listed every single recurring cost. I canceled the gym I never went to. I canceled the 3 different streaming services I used to numb my brain. I called the internet provider and negotiated a lower rate by threatening to leave. Then I did the hardest part. I looked at my car keys. I didn't need a car in the city. The insurance, the gas, the maintenance, it was a noose around my neck. I listed the car for sale on 3 different sites that night. The first month was brutal. It was the month of no takeout, no drinks with friends, no new clothes. I started meal prepping, huge batches of lentils, rice, and frozen vegetables. It was boring. It was repetitive. But for the first time in years, I wasn't wondering if my card would work at the grocery store. I started walking to work. It took 45 minutes, but it saved me $5 a day and cleared my head. I saw parts of the city I'd never noticed before. The way the sun hit the old brickwork of the cathedrals, the small community gardens tucked between skyscrapers. The small plot twist in my plan came when Miller called me into his office. My heart plummeted. I thought I was being fired. I thought my slow motion recovery was about to be derailed by a job loss. "Mark, I've noticed a change in you," Miller said, leaning back in his chair. "You're more focused. You're not as jittery. The reports you've been turning in are the best I've seen in years." He didn't give me a massive raise, but he gave me a performance bonus, $2,000. A year ago, I would have spent that on a new TV or a weekend trip to pretend I was rich. This time, I didn't even touch it. I sat in my carless one-room apartment and moved that money directly onto my highest interest credit card. The feeling of hitting submit payment and seeing a balance drop to 0 for the first time was better than any drug. It was a physical weight lifting off my shoulders. I could breathe deeper. I could sleep through the night without waking up at 3 a.m. in a cold sweat. It took me 18 months of discipline. 18 months of saying, I can't afford that without feeling ashamed. I realized that I can't afford that isn't a statement of weakness. It's a statement of control. It means you know exactly where your power is going. The city is still expensive. The rent is still high. My apartment is still small. But the difference is that I own my life now. The bank doesn't own my sleep. The credit card companies don't own my peace of mind. I still walk past that furniture store with the $4,000 chair. Sometimes I see people inside looking stressed and checking their watches. I don't envy them anymore. I just keep walking, feeling the weight of my own freedom in my pocket. If you're listening to this and you feel like you're underwater, I want you to know one thing. The system is designed to make you feel like you need to spend to be happy. It's a lie. The greatest luxury in the world isn't a car, a watch, or a designer suit. The greatest luxury is waking up in the morning and knowing that you don't owe a single person a damn thing. True wealth isn't about what you can buy. It's about what you can walk away from. Start today, write down the numbers, face the monster. It's a long walk out of the dark, but I promise you, the air is much thinner and sweeter up here.